Good morning for those in Europe, good afternoon for those in China. My name is Martina Gerst. I am responsible for standards and market access at the EU SME Centre. You have joined the EU SME Centre's webinar, Best Practices for EU SMEs Participating in a Machine Tool Exhibition in China. So you get an overview of the marketing and the IPR issues there. So today's webinar is organized by us, by the EU SME Centre, together with CECIMO, which is the European Association of the Machine Tool Industry, the VDMA, and the China IPR SME Helpdesk. So, let me see. So if you have any questions, you can see the red thing, which is the question area. Please feel free to comment or you put your questions there. We will try to answer them or to answer them after the webinar. So exhibitions in China are a great thing for European SMEs, and this is why the EU SME Centre in Beijing is supporting small and medium-sized enterprises to export to China or to settle down here. We basically offer free and confidential information and advice, but also very practical support. You can see here on this site. We deal with a lot of inquiries or give trainings, particularly in the areas business development, HR and training, legal, or in my area, standards and conformity. But we also offer support services like, for example, hot deskings or matchmaking. So as exhibitions are a great opportunity to promote all EU products or services, our experts today, Ms. Heidolf and Ms. Salmoraghi, would like to share their experiences regarding marketing and IPR. And this is where I pass over to Stefanie Heidolf from VDMA, who would like to share her marketing experiences with you. Okay, Stefanie, here we go.
Thank you very much. So my name is Stefanie Heidolf. I'm the Chief Representative of VDMA. That is German for German Engineering Federation, and I'm working in this position since January 2010. I have been living and working in China for 10 years and have work experience with professional trade fair organizers and as well Mechanical Engineering Association. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I would like to show you the building of VDMA, which is based in Frankfurt. We have 450 dedicated professionals working for us. It's all about mechanical engineering. We have over 3,000 corporate members, and we are Europe's largest and most important industrial organization for the capital goods industry. Now, mechanical engineering in our headquarter is divided into 38 subsectors. We in total represent 930,000 employees in Germany and a production value equal to 190 billion euro. The average export ratio of our corporate members is 77%, so it's very common for mechanical engineering companies to export into other countries outside of Europe. We have two representatives based in China, myself and Mr. Daniel Yu, who is based in Shanghai. We have 15 highly qualified and experienced engineers, economists and marketing experts for China, and also another standardization expert for technical norms in mechanical engineering. And we support our VDMA members regarding statistics and market information. This is some of our member companies. We do represent mostly small and medium-sized European enterprises, so we do have a lot of experience in advising small and medium-sized companies how to participate in trade fairs in China. So what should you do before you attend or go to a trade fair? What is the preparation work? From my experience, I think that it is very important, especially for a small and medium-sized company, looking at the marketing side, to seek your unique selling point and think how to present this in the Chinese market. There will be for sure maybe some already existing established customers that you have, so you do need to communicate to them that you are going to a certain trade fair and that you will be there. So in detail, this means you need to share your assigned booth and your location to everybody. Preparation material. To prepare your material well for China, this is very crucial. So you need to translate all information into Chinese language and also make sure that everything is maybe even bilingual, Chinese, English. Distribute your invitations to potential customers. Consider purchasing additional customer data that you can do, for example, from the exhibition management or other organizing partners. There is often an offer from the exhibition management to, for example, do an emailing in advance before the show. There is a service fee attached to this kind of activity, but consider if it is important for your company or interesting to do this. For example, if you don't have any existing or just a few existing customers in China. Another thing that is very important, to assign qualified booth personnel and consider engaging a Chinese translator. From my personal experience working at exhibitions in China, often small and medium-sized companies book a 9 square meter booth and they have one foreign salesperson standing at that booth. That is really not enough. This will be a little bit problematic if you have Chinese customers approaching you in a foreign person at the fair, and then you will maybe have problems to identify what they want. So you need Chinese-speaking staff here in China. And maybe 2 people is also better to have than just 1 salesperson at the fair. So prepare your marketing materials in Chinese language. Prepare your business cards in English and or Chinese language. Consider an exhibit for your booth, a small model or a poster where visitors can either feel what you are doing, your product. Chinese customers are very happy to feel the products and they are very interested and keen and curious. So give them a small model to feel what you're doing, or give them a poster. Now, to display your technology, because mechanical engineering often is a product that is difficult to explain, try to have maybe some graphics in pictures at the booth that show what is your technology that you are doing. And also, what is always nice, maybe display a picture of your headquarters location and your factory building. This is very attractive for Chinese customers to have a look at this. So apart from all these very general marketing things that you should do in advance to prepare your participation at an exhibition in China, I would like to give you advice also that there is the possibility to obtain financial support from your country. It is very common for countries to have an official country pavilion and to have some financial support programs. So they organize, the countries offer financial and organizational support, and especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. And now I have here given you some examples, especially for Germany, but all European countries for sure have some export funding program where you as a small and medium-sized enterprise can obtain some support for participating in a trade fair abroad. So what I mentioned, ask for country pavilions. The European country pavilion French country pavilion at a mechanical engineering fair is professionally organized by foreign trade fair companies, and exhibitors are offered a high-quality booth design under one roof. So, for example, well, made in Germany or made in Italy, made in France. Often, apart from having a small booth, you do have extra services, like there is some space as an exhibitor lounge and maybe some other extra services, translations maybe, or a matchmaking with some large customers. For all of this, you do need to apply in your home country. Yeah, so please check online if for your country there is some programs where you can apply for. From a timeline, I suggest you do this maybe 6 months prior to the exhibition. Normally, this at least goes for German official country pavilions. There's quite a long preparation timeline to apply for these country pavilions. So the good news is there is money to support you, but the bad news is you really have to apply very early, yeah, like to think about to go to a certain exhibition in China maybe a year before it really happens, yeah. Now here you will find some links. This is only Germany related, but I'm sure if you Google you will find your programs for France, Italy, Belgium, etc. Now, if you have, in an ideal case, achieved some funding program, and if you have prepared all your marketing materials well, then you are ready to go to the trade fair. So, what to do at the trade fair? I mentioned this already. Please always have the booth staffed with Chinese-speaking personnel here in China during the whole time of the trade fair, covering the first day to the very last day, and ideally covering the morning to even the last afternoon. I sometimes have seen companies who sent their sales representative from outside of China to the booth, and he just arrived on a plane, maybe in the afternoon. That is not really a very professional site towards your customers. You should have somebody there all the time. If you have hired a local assistant, a translator for the fair, you need to ensure that this person understands your company and the product range, especially if we're talking about machine tools exhibition. Yeah? So show this person, if it's not somebody from your own company or not somebody that is well known for mechanical engineering, machine tool sector, you need to train him. You need to give this person maybe 15-minute, 30-minute introduction into what technology you are producing. What helps for this kind of task is that you prepare a one-page simple inquiry form in English and Chinese or whatever language you are having translated to collect visitor inquiries, and then you can simply staple the business cards that you receive from the Chinese customer to this form. So here in this country, you will always receive a business card from somebody. So these cards will give you some details, but you need to also filter and separate the customer inquiries. You need to ask questions what this customer wants. Very often you will find that somebody is looking very interested in your products, in your booth, but maybe he has a total different question, that he is looking for a certain company and he's trying to find out whether you are the neighbor of this company. So you need to communicate with the customers and speak to them. And often this should be in this country in Chinese language. Then identify the real customer, as I call it here. Another small advice for China, you should be prepared that visitors collecting information from you at the booth, some of them are maybe no customers at all, they are just paper collectors. Actually, I should mention this too. So maybe glue some of your really good marketing brochure to the booth, to the desk. Don't give it out, because then it will not reach the person that should get this. Then there are visitors that don't look like really good potential customers, but they do collect information for their boss at home. So this also happens that in China, customers, large companies, send people to the fair on day 1 or day 2 to collect information. Then at home at their desk, this person will look at everything and come to the fair maybe on the last day in the evening or in the afternoon. And then after they have scanned the information, they will come back. So this happens too. So take every customer seriously, but ask questions what they want. If you have some free time at the fair, an exhibition, of course, is not only there to look at customers and to serve your own customers, but also allocate some time to stroll the fair and get an overview of the industry. I personally think that exhibitions are the best platform to get, in a very short time, 1 or 2 days, to get an overview of your competitors, to get an overview of the market, to discuss certain things about the market access with other people and multiplicators. So the remaining time, if you are not busy at the fair, can be properly spent as well. You can prepare yourself. You can read the exhibition company information like the catalog and other information. So walk through the trade fair and target large customers with the Chinese language brochure is also a way and a means of getting new companies or finding new customers. This basically is wrapping up all the marketing advice that, we in VDMA have collected and I myself have collected. Actually, to close this off, I have put together an amount of useful websites and links. Apologies, it is strongly German-based because I'm very familiar with the system in Germany and I'm not so familiar in other countries. But I am very sure that in all European countries, if you check the websites, you will find some trade fair companies or some multiplicators websites where to get more advice. There is actually a very professional German trade fair industry association that has information available not only in German language but in English and I believe also in French and Italian and Spanish, and there you should go, it's AUMA, and find more information. So with this I would like to close.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stefanie, for this very interesting presentation. Of course, we have now a couple of questions before we go to the next speaker, so probably I would like to share them. So overall, I've heard there is a lot of preparation time needed. So not only to get funding, but in total, what would you recommend to people in terms of planning, that it is not getting hastily, but really prepared to an exhibition in China?
Well, I mentioned 6 months earlier. If you have things to ship to China, bigger exhibits, that is actually a crucial point. Then you should have, I think the shipping time is 2 months, and that's your bottleneck here actually. So if you just have an information booth, you could still apply for a booth, let's say 2 months before a show. Yeah, and you only have posters to take yourself. But if you have an exhibit, you would at least need 5 months, 6 months preparation time. Maybe 9 months if it's a larger booth, 30 square meter, 50 square meter, then I would recommend a planning time of maybe 9 to 12 months in advance.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This sounds like a lot of preparation indeed. Another question which came up is you mentioned, or you stressed the fact to have Chinese personnel at the booth. So if I would be an SME, I would think of, where do I get these people from? I mean, do you have any recommendations to that regard?
Well, BDMA members come to our office in China and we help them find a translator. We can do that. I think there's a lot of universities and platforms. I'm not sure if also the SME Centre could do this. There is a lot of freelancers here, and normally all the European chambers have good contacts to this. So I think this is a crossing between mechanical engineering, who are in China, and also chambers of commerce.
Okay. So I see there are a lot of possibilities to really overcome this thing. Now, after the exhibition, you have a lot of contacts and things. So what is the best way to stay in contact or to keep up these contacts? If you are getting home, you probably have not this Chinese stuff anymore. So any idea on that? I mean, to follow up on things which you have started. I mean, what I get is you prepared for such a long time, then you are probably 3 to 5 days, very tough days at an exhibition. You have collected this amount of business cards, but then what to do and how to communicate with potential Chinese customers?
Okay. That's a very good point, especially for smaller companies. In this case, I mentioned an inquiry form will help you. Write it in bilingually, that you in your language can take home the written notes of this assistant that you maybe hired. And actually in those cases, if you then go back and don't have any Chinese supporting help at home, you should maybe spend another half hour with this assistant on site, go through all the inquiries and sort them, and take out the ones that maybe are not so serious and focus. So maybe choose those inquiries that sound really professional. I don't know, it could be 10, it could be 20, but sort. If you have 300 business cards and you are a small and medium-sized enterprise with 50 people worldwide, I don't think it is very good to follow up on all 300 contacts. Spend 1 hour with the Chinese assistant and tell this person you need to sort out 20, and then the 20 real inquiries you take home and write in English a follow-up email, because honestly speaking, Chinese companies purchasing foreign equipment are normally also possible to speak and follow up in English language. And if they want to purchase your equipment, I personally think they can find a way to translate your email. That should not be a problem then.
Okay, I see. So besides planning, there is a sort of prioritization also required during the whole process. So before we move to the IPR, one last, question to round up this thing. What are, challenges other than the ones you presented during what you told us now? From your experience, you have a top 3, in your mind, because you seem to have a lot of experience in terms of trade fairs. So what are the key challenges as a summary before we go to IPR?
Well, the 3 key points are really communication being point 1, to build the bridge between the customer and you. Point 2 is focus, prioritize. Who is a customer? Who do I want to be in contact with and who not? And number 3 being IPR, actually protect your know-how. Because selling machines to China, you need to be also looking at who you want to sell your machine to.
So thanks a lot, Stefanie. That's the perfect transition to Valentina, who now will give us an insight into the legal side of going to a trade exhibition in China. Valentina, I pass the floor. It's yours.
Thank you, Martina, and hello to everyone. We will basically, of course, still address the same topic of participating in a machine tool exhibition in China, but with the focus on IPR, especially how to protect IP and how to leverage on its value. Before I introduce myself and also the topic of today's presentation, let me just briefly give you an overview of the services that our China IPR SME Helpdesk can offer free of charge for small, medium enterprises from Europe. So for those of you that are not already familiar with our services and with our project, we are in a project funded by the European Union. Our services, as I said, are free to all European small medium enterprises, and we provide first-line confidential advice on intellectual property issues in China. Our services, as you can see from the slide, include various services. The inquiry helpline is the one that companies should find very important for them, because the helpline allows you to ask us any IP-related question, and you will receive a reply within 3 to 5 working days. You can ask us inquiries about how to protect your IP, but also how to enforce your IP rights if you are encountering some or experience some counterfeiting already. Training events, we held them throughout the year, both across Europe and China, and also in several European languages to facilitate people to understand specific and technical IP-related topics. We also provide IP materials such as guides, newsletter, case study catalog, which are all available for download from our website, again also free of charge, and you can also find there some e-learning modules, new sections, and information on upcoming events of our help desk. In this respect, also, I would like to point your attention to one specific guide titled IP Strategy for European SMEs at Trade Fairs in China. You will see, let's say, a shortened version in this presentation today, and then you will find more practical tips and information in the guide itself. And it's available, in fact, on our website. The website and the blog, let's say, we can consider it as a comprehensive hub of information from our project. So you will find there all publications, all events, also all webinars, and any related activities, and also case studies that you may find very similar to the experience that your company may have at the moment with China, all related to intellectual property rights. And then there's a section also of ELMs and business tools for self-help solutions to enable SMEs to take IP-informed decisions for China. You can also connect with us on social media, because we are social on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you can receive our updates on events and new features. And now about a very short introduction about myself. My name is Valentina Salmeraghi. I am the in-house expert for the China IPR SME Helpdesk. I hold a double master degree in law, and after working for 1 year for a leading international law firm in Milan, I started my practice in China in 2007, working in Beijing with an Italian firm, advising Italian and European companies on Chinese foreign direct investments and IP matters. I was in charge of the coordination of the law firm's China desk, and also have been appointed as chair of the SME focus group of the European Chamber of Commerce in China for Beijing, before joining the China IPR SME Helpdesk as IP expert in August 2013. I specialize in Europe and China cross-border investments, including, of course, IP rights, corporate contracts, and alternative disputes resolution for companies. I focus on IP protection, licensing, and also as well as IP enforcement. You will find also my email address, whether you would contact us, contact me directly or contact our project, listed in this slide. And now we go into the topic and the agenda of today. You will find that the presentation is also structured on the before, during, and after, the same as Stephanie before, because also for IPR, for intellectual property, really matters what you do to prepare and before attending the exhibition. But there are also options that you can have during the exhibition, whether you find possible counterfeit cases during the exhibition in a booth just next to yours, for instance, how to file then a complaint during the exhibition, and very important as well, what to do after the exhibition. So, you know, before the exhibition, I use this strong line, probably will sound pretty strong to you, but we say fail to prepare, prepare to fail. This is really the case, because basically if you attend a trade fair, and a trade fair is a very good opportunity for small, medium enterprises to act as a gateway to the Chinese market. You can find there, of course, potential distributors, potential customers, potential suppliers. But it is very important that you not lose control of your IP before, and now in few seconds I will tell you how not to do it before, how to be prepared to attend the trade fair, and especially not to lose it during the trade fair. So the first key is, you have to be aware that trade fairs are opportunity for you, economic opportunities, but also they have associated IP risks. So if you protect your IP, if you need to protect your IP, you must know that it requires really preparation and for months in advance. I will actually indicate the same kind of timing that Stephanie has indicated for preparing, such as 9-12 months for the very big fairs, because this is basically in general the timing that you will need to also register your IP rights for China. Do not wait to see what happens at the trade fair and then consider to register your IP rights afterwards, because that might be really too late for you. So if you think about protecting in advance, you also need to know that you can really protect and therefore enforce your IP only about the IP that you really own for China. So first of all, make sure that you have IP registered rights valid for China, meaning that they have to be registered in mainland China. Then, of course, you have to identify which key IP assets you have. Here you find listed trademarks. Trademarks are really like a distinctive sign for any kind of industry. It's like a name of your company, your logo, what identifies your product, but also patents. This is very important in, especially in the machinery tools in your industry. Therefore, because machineries, they can have a technology that can be patented, but they can have a design that could be anyway protected as a patent or an utility model. And also copyright, because copyright is a kind of IP that we can call it as like a secondary IP. Not many companies are aware that they could protect some parts of their business materials, for instance, marketing materials under copyright, but this is actually possible. And you could register it in China. So register as soon as possible, as we said. And then also, before you attend the trade fair, you should be able to determine the strategy very well in advance of what you want to do in the trade fair. And what I mean by strategy, it's like, of course, we said you are there to exhibit your new products or anyway your very well-known products, but do you want to also take enforcement action, for instance, at the trade fair, or only you want to use the trade fair as an opportunity to gather evidences for future legal actions? It is recommended that you really focus on your strategy, and also, if possible, you try to discuss your strategy with an experienced lawyer who is familiar with working at trade fairs in China. Because, if you're not certain about securing all the necessary evidence and the paperwork to carry out an action during the trade fair, then you could at least use it to gather more evidences for instance, a legal action afterwards. Also in the way how you prepare, so still before the exhibition, how you prepare to be ready. We said register IP rights before, and then have ready all the required documents. So for trademarks, for instance, prepare, let's say, like a folder, literally like a folder with all the certificates that you have and related payments of fees, so that you will have everything ready in case you find any potential counterfeit in there. And especially because since you know already your industry very well, you may have already the suspect that you have some infringer that may attend the same trade fair. So use this opportunity also to take a look around and to be prepared. And so for trademarks, make sure that you prepare in this folder the certificate, the renewal certificate, if your trademark is registered for the second time for 10 years and so on, and documents certifying the identity of the owner, meaning like the certificate of incorporation of your company, either is in Germany or in Europe, in any other country, or in China. Then for patents, utility models and design. What is very important is that you prepare, again, the patent certificate, and all certificate I am mentioning here are certificate of registration in China. Then, all the additional information, text of published patents, documents certifying again the identity, confirmation of the legal status. Maybe you have a pending application for patent or for a design, which is very important anyway to protect you, to act as a very strong ground anyway in case you will find some trouble during the trade fair. And also official receipt for patents, of the payment of the annuity fees to show that actually your patent is valid, that you paid all the fees, therefore your protection is granted. And then if we talk a bit more about copyright, as I just mentioned before, when you have marketing materials such as the brochure, also the previous speaker, she mentioned prepare also something translated, image of your product, all this kind of information. So the brochures, image, logo, of course, also could be protected, and booklets with instructions, because to operate machineries, you also need to provide, technical information and instructions. Then all these, let's call them marketing material, could be registered in China and protected, therefore, under copyright. Registration is not compulsory. We said before, like for trademarks, for patents, design, and so on, you need to have a valid registration for China. For copyright, this is not compulsory, meaning that you don't have to do a registration, but if you want to enforce protection for the brochures, the image, instructions, and so on, you need to have a certificate in your hands, because if anything happens during the trade fair, you have a certificate again, as the other certificate we mentioned, to prove that you own basically the right of these brochure and booklets and so on. Then when you are at the trade fair, when you're just about to start the trade fair, also contact the organizer to gain more information on the IP complaint center at the trade fair. What is this complaint center is basically what I'm referring to. When you find there may be some companies that produce, or they are exhibiting at the same time, some copycats of your products, or anyway some machineries that have a very, very similar design of yours. Make sure that you could actually go to this complaint center. Usually it's a very small booth, and you must know where this booth is located. So ask the organizer of the trade fair. All the serious organizers of trade fairs in China, they have to have this IP complaint center, and they have to tell you where this little booth is situated, is located exactly. Then you should also check who are the other exhibitors, to know whether, as we say, there could be someone, you have the doubt that someone of this counterfeiting company are exhibiting also. Carefully read the exhibitor contract, because the contract should usually tell you which kind of measures could be taken if counterfeit products are identified during the fair. So additional measures in addition to the IP complaint center. And if it's unclear in the contract, then take steps to clarify the arrangement with the organizer. I mean, do not be shy, do not neglect, do not think that this is an issue that you could overlook, because then if you're not prepared, if you don't know in advance, when you have a problem right there, also acting promptly, it's part of the way to succeed. And if you don't know, you're losing time to try to locate where is the IP complaint center and so on, you may lose really very precious time. And then also, if you have doubts already, use experienced lawyers. Also at the trade fair, like alert them before. If you have a lawyer for your company in China already, alert them before. Mention and inform them you're going to attend that trade fair, and obtain also some additional necessary entry pass for them. Otherwise, they may be stuck at the entrance and they could not be able to help you, basically. When you are at the trade fair, we said act promptly, so be proactive and not just reactive. Review, and this is a very practical tip actually that I could give you, especially for the machine industry, machine tools industry, because you should review and consider what materials you are displaying and distributing during the fair, especially if they're related to new products, to new machineries. Because you should remember that from an intellectual property perspective, displaying these products at trade fair may constitute a kind of publication, and so this may affect the novelty value of your new machinery, for instance. So if you have, didn't register a patent application for it, if you have a pending one, but not with an official notice issued already for the acceptance of it, be sure maybe you could consider actually not to display this specific new product at the trade fair. This is really a point that you should take into consideration very carefully, and not only, of course, there are economic and commercial issues and decisions that you have to take, but consider what will be the best option for the protection of your IP rights. Then, when you are there, also, if you know that there may be, some suspect of the presence of other infringements, be smart, meaning really act. So collect the business cards. Of course, you will have business cards of potential customers, as it was said, but also collect business cards, brochures, and any other information especially from any suspected infringers, because then, you will get information about them. Take also digital camera or anyway camera phone with you to try to secure some evidences. Take some pictures and keep a database of these potential infringers. We will see right afterwards what you could do with this database that you will build during exhibitions. Then, if you find really that there is a counterfeit in place at the exhibition itself, go straight to the complaint center, fill their form. Basically what you need to do is then they will ask you to provide documents showing that you are the valid IP owner. So you already bid them on time because you already have your certificates ready, because you became there prepared. You came to the trade fair prepared. So you fill their form and attach a copy. They want to see your original certificates, but just show them, do not give them, then give a copy attached to the form of your certificate. Ask then the intervention of the IP officer, and go with the IP officer to the booth of the infringer. You must know that, also in this proceeding, a time for the infringer to respond, it's also allowed. So it's not just automatically that because you filed a form for the complaint that they go there and they close the booth and they remove all goods immediately. China is a country where patience really applies everywhere, and so nevertheless at trade fairs the same. Then if the infringement is actually considered valid, then the removal of these infringing goods will be ordered. But you must know that the IP officer itself is not a policeman, he's not a Chinese authority authorized from the Chinese government. So the IP officer alone doesn't have the power to order the infringer to remove the products, to close the booth and everything. But the organizer can. So, through the IP officer, and if the IP officer found that your claim actually has grounds, then you will inform the organizer, and then the booth could be closed there immediately. As we said, be patient. It may take several hours also for the IP officer to review all your documentation, but imagine if you didn't know about this, if you didn't prepare before all the documentation that I mentioned, like fail to prepare or prepare to fail, remember this line, because otherwise, which kind of documents will you provide? The IP officer will not take into consideration your claim at all. So it is also recommended that you take several copies. This is again another practical tip, several copies of all your documentation. The original, we repeat, just to show, but do not give your original to anybody, because the original is only one copy. Make sure of that, because when you're there in the middle of the problem, you will be willing, you will got upset, kind of emotional, and maybe willing to give certificates around. Do not do that. The IP officer will present the complaint, and we receive the complaint. Also be prepared that sometimes this is not, if a trade fair lasts for several days, maybe the IP officer will not be the same each day. So also, again, be patient to, repeat your claim, make copies, provide all copies. this is what could happen, and the tool that you have actually at your disposal during the trade fair to file a complaint and then to stop the infringer just right there. But then also remember, for more serious cases of counterfeit, you also need to be ready to follow up after the trade fair. So after that, act on the information that you have gathered. If the action was taken directly at the trade fair, then you should also follow up with the authorities and conduct follow-up investigations to check if the infringer had really stopped the infringing activities, because the activities are not at the booths only. So make sure that you keep in touch and you provide a follow-up to be sure that everything has stopped. And then also take additional or further enforcement actions if necessary, because after you got all the details of the company, after you know which company was exhibiting in there, take further action if you really want to stop them. And in the case no enforcement action was taken at the trade fair, for instance, let's say that the IP officer at the complaint center was not totally convinced of your valid rights, or maybe you didn't have all the certificate in place, then you cannot really take any enforcement action in there, but you can report all the information and very valuable, important information you have gathered during the fair, report to your legal department or IP department, it depends from the size of your company, and add this information that you have gathered to your records. Because after that, you know, what you could be able to do is actually taking additional actions based on additional considerations. For instance, send a cease and desist letter, meaning a formal letter drafted by lawyers, to warn the infringers prior to a next trade fair. So to the same company, to companies related to that company, because actually sometimes you will find afterward that there are common links. Companies are actually linked. Maybe the one who is exhibiting is at the very end of a line of infringers. So you want to actually hit the whole line and not only one company, if that is not the one, for instance, manufacturing the machineries that are similar or identical to yours. So this cease and desist letter should include an order or a request to stop any infringing activities, or otherwise the company, the infringing company, will face legal actions. Of course, you have to be ready. When you send this kind of letter, you should have already gathered all the evidences to support that, because it's like if you are sending this letter to threaten that there will be legal actions, but then you don't take any legal action, then, you know, the company will not take also your letter seriously, and therefore they may think that, okay, you're kind of tolerating the infringements for other trade fairs and for a long time again. Then manage also, be ready to manage your expectations, accept also some more modest successes, let's say. The enforcement against the traders, you know, sometimes are going to be challenged, because information may not be gathered as really relevant or very strong. Maybe, as we said, you cannot really convince AP officers, so be ready, you know, but any modest success that you can get is still an action to stop and enforce your rights. And sometimes also you may decide to be more prudent, to wait instead of just taking an immediate action right after the trade fairs, but wait to collect more information about the common links I mentioned before, because, you know, you have also to prioritize the targets and make clear which kind of companies you want to really hit, which are the real manufacturers of your machineries, for instance. So the enforcement action at the trade fair may not be appropriate sometimes for some reasons, but then, you know, it is obvious that also the exhibitor is not the main target. Could be, as we said, links of many other companies. Maybe the exhibitor is just a reseller or is just a trade company. So you should investigate further to know which is the real manufacturer, to locate where the manufacturing company is producing exactly in China, and then take action directly against that, instead of losing your time and costs of a legal action, for instance, just against the reseller or the trading company. So this is basically it for our topic focused on IP, but I'm really keen to answer any questions if there are.
So yeah, thank you very much, Valentina, for this very, how to say, dense presentation. I think it was a lot of information. And what, from your point of view, what are, how to say, the challenges you have encountered in the past in terms of what can really happen? Or, I mean, would you like to share some examples you have had here in China? Because one I know is that, for example, a lot of companies, they have filed patents in Europe, for example, but there is no, I mean, you know, they're coming to China, and then it would be interesting to know, are they protected? What probably happens? Because I think that's a case which is quite common, that that patents are filed somewhere in Europe, but probably not in China. I mean, you mentioned that it would be good to have it, but very often people decide on a very last minute to go to a fair, yeah, and then so this is one point I know, but you probably know others as well.
Yes. Okay. In general, based on experience of also of European SMEs that contacted our help desk, very often we found that it is true, really true, that the ones they had all the certificate valid for China were the ones that could really start effective actions during the trade fair and using the fair to collect more evidences for lawsuits afterwards. Your specific question, so, you know, everything is really focused on being prepared, know what could happen and be prepared for that, like playing, you know, in advance. But in relation to your specific question for patent, and yeah, patent also requires really technical, some technical advice, because some patents for some machineries, for instance, they've been patented several years ago in Europe or even in one specific country and so on, and so they lost. I mean, they're protected for those territory, but because the validity of a patent is really territorial, so what is not registered in China, and this is especially valid for China, then is not valid in this territory. So I have a patent registered for 10 years already in Europe, but how can I really enforce this in China? The problem is that when there are some grant period where you could register a patent for another territory and then also claim for priority right for China as well. But this is really for very limited time. We're talking about some months only. So when we are talking about patents registered many years ago, in practice, there's no way to have a registration valid for China. But what you can do then is, of course, if you really focus on the Chinese market, try to foresee for any other new machineries that you're producing, think in advance to also select China, even if at this moment you're not thinking to commercialize this specific machinery in China, but you know that is the time where you should really act in advance. For those kind of machineries you cannot patent anymore, they're already on the market, they're already public, then at least try to add, let's call it like a layered protection. So at least register everything related, so all the image or the technical instructions, as we mentioned before, under the copyrights. To be clear, copyrights doesn't give you a protection of what is the patent, the technology, or the design of your machinery. It doesn't give you that, but it gives protection for the way it is reproduced. So at least you can, based on the copyright registration, you can forbid any other person, any other company to use that specific image of your machinery, that specific description of the way of the instruction, and therefore they may be not able, you know, to claim that they own the way of operating that machine as well.
So yeah, thank you very much for this comprehensive answer to I mean, it was an easy question, but it looks like it's not such an easy topic. Okay, thanks a lot for sharing your insight with us. So probably to just, how to say, finish, or before we are finishing, we have another question here. Probably Stephanie would like to answer. We have been asked for the ones who are coming first to China to an exhibition, if visitors come to the booth, so should there be something special? And how about like business gifts? So I think probably your experience, depending on exhibitions, Stephanie.
Well, I think for what visitors expect, if you are a small and medium-sized company and you have a small booth, I think to ask the customer to have a seat maybe and to have a glass of water, maybe have a Coke is fine here in China, and then talk about business. It's a machine tool exhibition, it's mechanical engineering. They are not expecting any fancy gimmicks, I would suggest. So gimmicks are fun, yes. If you are a bigger company, gimmicks are always welcome, also in China, yes, of course. But if you are a small company and you want to present your technology, I don't think you need to have any kind of fancy marketing gimmicks. Just explain your technology, what is your core unique selling point, and present that well at the fair.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you, Valentina and Stephanie, for this really deep insight and sharing your experiences. So I think that's enough food for thought for today to digest. If there are no, or if you still have questions, here you can see where you can address them on our webpage, or the info at EU SME Centre, or for the help desk, for particularly everything which is IPR related. So you have the question at the China IPR Helpdesk.eu. So this is the end of the webinar today. If you would like to get more information, you can reach us also on social media. Valentina already has mentioned for the IPR SME Helpdesk. We will have this webinar on our website. You can also see the slides. This has been also recorded of today. And once this webinar is finished, there will be a small survey where I would like to ask you to fill it out. This helps us a bit to improve. And thank you very much, and I hope you will have a successful exhibition in China if you decide at one point to go there. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks again very much for the audience and the speakers, and bye-bye.